peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us. Earlier on, we are having a live update about the COVID situation here in the country, Kenya, led by the CS for Health, Mr. Mutahi Kagwe, who today also read a new high for Kenya in terms of the cases that have been reported for the last 24 hours. And so far, the new cases in Kenya are at 447 cases, and the total number of cases in the country right now stands at 8,975, and the death toll in the morning was at 169. Right now, the death toll is at 173. Warm welcome to you. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and this is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news-making headlines in this continent. So, outside of Kenya, Uganda also have confirmed cases. Right now, stands at 977, and recoveries is at 904. And Zimbabwe, the cases are at 885, and the death toll is 9. Recoveries is at 206, and South Sudan, the cases is at 2,106. 40 people have died in South Sudan, and recoveries is at 954. South Africa, 224,665 cases. The death toll is 3,602. Recoveries is 106,842. And Nigeria, the figures right now stands at 30,249 cases. The death toll is 684, recoveries is at 12,373, and Ethiopia 6,774 cases. The death toll is 120, recoveries is 2,430, and Cameroon 14,916 cases have been reported. 359 of those have died, 11,525 have recovered, and Malawi, we see the figures right now stands at 1,818. 19 people have died. 317 others have recovered. And Zambia, 1,895, and 42 people have died. Recoveries is 1,348. Sudan, 10,084 cases. The death toll is 636. Recoveries is 5,074. And Madagascar, 3,573 cases, 33 people have died. Recoveries is 1,761. And then Rwanda, 1,194 cases, 3 people have died. Recovery is 610. DRC, 7,432 cases, 182 deaths. Recovery is 3,226 cases. And Burundi, there the cases have not gone up. And then we see where. So, of course, the total number of confirmed cases earlier was at 510 across Africa, but I'm sure right now those cases have gone a bit up, and so far the death toll in Africa is over 12,000, while recoveries is nearing about 300,000. So thank you so much. And of course, the global cases have surpassed 12 million. The global deaths have surpassed 500,000, and the global recoveries right now have slightly surpassed 7 million people there. Thank you so much. So let's just get into the other news making headlines, and we see what else is happening in the continent. And something is trending from Malawi, and we shall find out what exactly is happening there. And we start with Malawi itself. And Malawi's new president, Lazarus Chakwera, has been criticized for including a husband and a wife duo in siblings in his cabinet. The president's former running mate in 2019 elections, Siddiq Mia, has been appointed Minister for Transport, and his wife, Abida Mia, is the Deputy Minister for Lands. Kenny Kadondo is the new Labour Minister, and his sister, Kubize Kadondo, is the Health Minister. Now, businessman Gospel Kazako has been appointed information minister, and his sister-in-law Agnes Nkusan Nkoma is the deputy agriculture minister. Earlier, President Chakwera's first appointee to the Justice Ministry, lawyer Mordecai Msisiska, refused to take up the position, saying it will look like a reward for representing him in court during his case that nullified ex-President Peter Mutharika election win. There you go, one person that is honorable there. But some have also pointed out that Mr. Chakwera had attacked Mr. Mutharika about nepotism in the past and for filling his cabinet with people from his region. They add that more than 70% of President Chakwera's new lineup is from the central region, his political stronghold. All right. President Chakwera there starting on a very bad note. How do you just appoint siblings in the same cabinet as if they don't have any other qualified people that work for Malawians? It's quite interesting. And tell me what you think about that as we move to Sudan and Sudan's transitional government and rebel groups negotiating in South Sudan's capital, Juba, will sign a final peace deal in 2 weeks. Mediators have announced the news emerged after a delegation of South Sudanese mediators returned from Sudan's capital, Khartoum. The peace talks are taking place in South Sudan had stalled because of COVID-19. And we move to Nigeria, where the Nigerian government has reversed last week's decision to reopen schools nationwide for final year primary and secondary school students. Education Minister Adamu told reporters at the presidential palace that schools would only reopen when it was safe to do so, and not when the number of coronavirus cases was rising in the country. This will not be anytime soon, he added. The U-turn means millions of students at primary and secondary schools, as well as tertiary institutions, including universities, will most likely not graduate this year. Nigeria has 30,249 cases of coronavirus so far, including 684 deaths. And still staying with Nigeria, and the Islamist militant group Boko Haram has released a video in which a fighter says he is part of a branch in Nigeria's western Niger state. The group's more than decade-long insurgency has largely focused on the northeast of the country and the Lake Chad region. A presence in Niger, Nigeria's largest state, would represent a worrying development as it borders on the country's capital, Abuja. Analysts have voiced concerns that the dense, mountainous and forest terrain in Niger state would be a natural haven for the militants, and recent attacks by armed groups in the northwest of the country, including the president's home state of Katsina, has led to protests in the region. And then we move to Libya, where United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres says foreign interference in Libya has reached an unprecedented level. He told a virtual meeting of the United Nations Security Council that the conflict had entered a new phase, and he was alarmed by the military build-up and the number of mercenaries involved. German's Foreign Minister Heiko Maas called for a halt to the supply of all arms to Libya to help end foreign interference. Earlier, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has reported as saying that Libyan renegade General Khalifa Haftar was ready to sign a ceasefire agreement. Russia is among a number of countries, including Egypt and the United Arab Emirates, that support General Haftar. The government's forces are heavily backed by Turkey. And we go to South Africa, and South Africa now has the world's 14th higher number of COVID-19 infections globally, and officials are concerned that the virus doubling rate is currently higher than all countries with more cases than South Africa. The doubling rate is the time taken for the total number of cases of an infectious disease to double. South Africa is in the middle of winter when the spread of coronavirus is expected to increase drastically, and it is the beginning. It happened. 192 deaths were reported in the last 24 hours, the highest so far. More than 10,000 infections were recorded over the same period. The Western Cape has the most cases currently, with just over 72,000 reported infections. And we move to Ethiopia. And the police in Ethiopia say at least 177 people killed in violent protests last week, which was sparked by the killing last Monday of popular musician Hachalu Hundessa. His murder remains unresolved, although investigations are still underway, and there have been some arrests, but the fallout continues. More than 4,000 people have now been arrested because of their alleged involvement in the wave of violence. And we go to South Sudan, where the governor of the Bank of South Sudan has warned that coronavirus pandemic means the country needs to find a plan B for money making. Oil is South Sudan's major export, and South Sudan used to produce 350,000 barrels of oil per day before the outbreak of conflict in 2013. In February this year, the country's Ministry of Petroleum said it was aiming to produce 200,000 barrels per day. But in the wake of the pandemic spreading across the world, the global oil prices are plummeted earlier this year. On Tuesday, the governor of the Bank of South Sudan, Gamal Abdallah Wani, said the country's economy had been severely hit by coronavirus pandemic because the government did not have Plan B and Plan C apart from oil revenue. He said the coronavirus pandemic has forced South Sudan to try and work out where else to make money apart from oil. He suggested that the central bank could buy and refine gold. And still with South Sudan, and the South Sudan National Police Services have warned against shooting into the air during the celebrations of Independence Day. Every year, some members of the organized forces and civilians in Juba and other parts of the country usher in the 9th of July, Independence Day, by shooting guns into the air to express excitement. But police say such shootings often result in the death or injury of people hit by stray bullets. A security team meeting on Wednesday and resolved that no member of the organized forces or armed individuals is allowed to shoot their guns in the air starting last night. Police spokesperson Major General Daniel Justin says anyone who violates the ban on random shootings and fireworks will be arrested. South Sudan will mark the 9th anniversary of Independence Day, I think tomorrow, without an official public event. And then we go to Ivory Coast, and the Ivorian government has confirmed the death of Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly. He died at the age of 61 in the capital Abidjan. Multiple news sites, including Jeune Afrique, reported the death late Wednesday, citing multiple official sources. The deceased returned home last week after a 2-month absence, during which period he was receiving medical treatment in France. Coulibaly is a close ally to Ouattara and has held the Prime Minister portfolio since 2017. He was the presidential candidate of the ruling rally of Republicans Party in upcoming polls, meant to choose a new president as incumbent Alassane Ouattara leaves office after 2 terms. The party elected him as a flag bearer in March 2020 for the October polls. And then we go to Cameroon, where former United States Ambassador Herman J. Cohen has urged the government of Cameroon to embrace ceasefire talks with separatists in order to put an end to the long-drawn conflict in the English-speaking regions of the country. Detained separatist leaders at the weekend claimed they met with the delegation from the government of Cameroon to begin talking on conditions for a ceasefire. However, the government of Cameroon on Monday described the claims as non-consistent with reality, but reiterated its commitment to seek peaceful solutions to the crisis of the troubled Anglophone regions. And we go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and police in the DRC have made several arrests as they broke up Wednesday's protests in 2 cities over plans to name a new head to the country's election panel. Police and activists have said political parties and campaign groups are angry over moves to appoint a figure accused by the opposition of helping former President Joseph Kabila rig past elections. Now, police arrested 30 demonstrators in Goma, the capital of the eastern North Kivu province, according to Ghislaine Muhiwa, an activist with the group Lucha. And we end with South Africa, and this is where I'll have trouble saying these Zulu names, but a royal family in South Africa has confirmed the death of Queen Nolosio Sandile from COVID-19, a sister to the current Zulu monarch, King Goodwill Zwelithini. I'm sure it is not pronounced like that. She served as a regent of the Amarahabe royal family. Now, Queen Nolosio, was married to Amarahabe monarch Makoba Sandile for over 2 decades until his death in 2011. She was then made the regent as her son, Prince Sandile, was too young to become the king. All right, so we have lost the monarch in this continent. I don't know how many of us knew that South Africa, we had some monarchy going on there, and the current king, the current Zulu monarch, King Goodwill, his sister, I think, has died. Yes, the sister there has died. So we have lost a queen in this continent. You people, we should know our monarchs in this continent. All right, in the southern parts of Africa, even in Botswana, when you go to also, where else? Lesotho, they have Eswatini. They have still their own traditional, monarchy there. And so it's good to know these things. I just did not know that in Zulu they still had that. There's a king in Zulu, all right? Not King Shaka Zulu, but there's a king in Zulu. Thank you so much, and a very good afternoon to you. Now, this news from Malawi is quite disturbing. I personally had a lot of faith on the new president, Lazarus Chakwera, and when you read after this story broke out and about how he has appointed his cabinet, how do you appoint somebody as a minister, then appoint their wife also in the cabinet, and then appoint another person as a minister, and then appoint their cousin in the same cabinet, and then appoint, come on, what is this? This sounds like a personal or a family enterprise here. Is Mr. Lazarus Chakwera very serious about running Malawi? I mean, the country has just survived what was supposed to be a very tumultuous time there in the country. I remember after the elections last year, there has been some protest and all that. At Malawi are quite a peaceful people, because if that was some other parts in Africa, it would have resulted in massive deaths and things like that. So they were able to protest, although the police was very brutal sometimes, but they survived that. And then, the elections were nullified, and they went to another election, and it was, fairly peaceful, and they survived that. And I was very proud of, the strong democracy, there in Malawi, and the people knew what they want, and so they thought, we are tired with what we've been having. So now Mr. Chakwera has come in with the party that was there at the Party of Independence, MCP, and now they thought perhaps it is a new dawn, and they think that a lot of things that he was accusing the former President Peter Mutharika of, now he is barely a week into the presidency, and we see. So this is just another level of nepotism, and Malawians, and indeed people across Africa and the world, have not minced their words. They've been having a fun day with this information, especially on social media. So let me just read us through that once again so that we can understand. And thank you so much, our viewers. Keep writing. I'll read some of your comments in just a short bit. And Malawi's new president, Lazarus Chakwera, has been criticized for including a husband and a wife duo and siblings in his cabinet now. The president's former running mate in the 2019 elections, Siddiq Mia, has been appointed Minister of Transport. And then he did not stop there. His wife, the wife to this person who's been appointed the Minister of Transport, his wife, Abida Mia, is the Deputy Minister for Lands. All right, so that is a husband and a wife serving in ministerial positions there. All right, and Kenny Kandondo is the new Labour Minister. That is another one. And his sister, Kumbize Kandondo, is the health minister. What? Are you serious? Or maybe President Chakwera just surrounded himself with people who are really, really capable of, regardless of how they even will fit in that cabinet. And so businessman Gospel Kazako has been appointed information minister, and his sister-in-law, all right, his sister-in-law Agnes Nkusa Nkoma is the deputy agriculture minister. So basically, when they'll be having all these cabinet meetings, it's just going to be relatives just having a good time there. And earlier, President Chakwera's first appointee to the Justice Ministry, lawyer Mordecai Msiska, refused to take up their position, saying it will look like a reward for representing him in court during the case that nullified ex-President Peter Mutharika's election. Just one person there with a good head over his shoulder. The rest of them, how does this even make sense? How does a husband and a wife, both a husband is a minister of labor, and then the wife is the deputy minister of lands, and they'll be sitting in the same cabinet. Then the other one is the minister of labor, and his sister is the minister of health. And then the other one is the Minister for Information, and his sister-in-law is the Deputy Minister for Agriculture. How does this even make sense? Some things that happen, and I know you might say not just in Africa that these things are happening. We've seen President Donald Trump even appointing his son-in-law and his very close family members there, to work very closer to him. But Donald Trump is just a unique case. He's just something that we can't even talk about. But Chakwera, people had looked to see that perhaps he'll bring in a new form of leadership there in Malawi, and a lot of people outside Malawi had a lot of confidence in him. And he was very critical of former President Peter Mutharika and how he ran his government, the appointments that he made, and things like that. And he accused him of nepotism a couple of times in the past. And now when you see the composition of his new cabinet, our Lord, it's just very disappointing. Now, they add more than 70% of President Chakwera's new lineup the new lineup that he has now, 70% of those are coming from the central region, which is his political stronghold, which is very, very wrong. And I was watching, I was listening. Of course, Dr. Matanga is not a very big fan of Lazarus Chakwera, and I've been the one who's sitting here and just trying to support that. Perhaps he just means well for Malawi. He will do well. But now look at what he just did. 70% of the people that he just appointed comes from his central region, his political background, which is so wrong and goes against everything that he promised on his inauguration speech. I had all that speech printed out. I don't have it here with me, but I have it somewhere. And he said he'll try to reach out to all people from all corners of Malawi, even those who did not support him. But if 70% of the people are President Lazarus Chakwera, you have chosen to be part of your cabinet, they all come from your stronghold. How are you planning to bring all Malawians together? Because it is through such appointments that you show your intention of creating a unified Malawi. But if you just concentrate and award those people who support you and those who perhaps voted for you, then you're not helping in building a united Malawi. You're not helping in building a country that is inclusive. And that is how a lot of countries, we see all these, unfortunate situations, because a lot of people feel, us from this side, we're not included in that government. We don't have a say in that government as much as we did not vote for that person. But he is the president of the republic and is supposed to have all of us under his swing and make sure that you're able to benefit, if at all. And so when you choose a whole 70% from your stronghold, President Lazarus Chakwera, the world and indeed Malawians were expecting just a bit too much. Maybe they were expecting a bit too much from you, but they thought you're a person of what? You're an honorable person, being that you're coming from the church. So they thought maybe you're honorable. And when you even get to appointments, you will do an honorable thing and just try to get a people that will have a face that represents the whole of Malawi, and not 70% from a place where is your stronghold, the people who voted for you the most. I think that is just out of order, and we must call it as it is. Lazarus Chakwera, you have let down the people of Malawi really early in the game there. I mean, this is not right. And in your speech, during your inauguration, when in your acceptance speech there after the Electoral Commission declared that you are the winner, you said very well, you will try to bring everybody on board, those who voted for you and those who did not vote for you. And I understand that as a president, it is important, especially when you're constituting your cabinet, to ensure that you have people who are like-minded, who share your dream, and who perhaps will advance the things that you promised, and will help in the implementation of some of your manifesto to the people. But also in just reaching out and waving an olive branch, and also just a white flag, and just extending yourself to the rest of the people who do not perhaps vote for you. You have to bring everybody on board. And then, to make the matters worse, you have relatives in this cabinet. You have a husband and a wife in this cabinet. They both have different positions. You have also another person and their cousin in the same cabinet, and then you have who else? A brother and a sister in the same cabinet. This is ridiculous of the highest level. I can't even. I was reading this and I thought, no, this is a bad joke. When I started seeing this thing trending, because it was trending, I thought, now this is a bad joke. People just, are just, being too much with the new president of Malawi, and perhaps they should cut him some slack. And then I read it and I thought, you know what, President Chakwera, stop. This is not the right way to rebuild a country, because this country has been going through some not very good times in the past couple of years. And so to just you should have shown leadership and ensuring that your cabinet is inclusive, by ensuring that you bring people who represent the face of Malawi, and not just a bulk of the people who voted for you. And this thing of nepotism, this is just not right. A husband and a wife, a brother and a sister, somebody and their cousin. This will just be like a family get-together when you're having, cabinet meetings there. So this is just out of order. And I hope the way Malawians were very vocal, they're very democratic and they're very vocal. I hope that they are vocal on this, and perhaps President Lazarus Chakwera might, get a hold of himself and do the right thing. I mean, we cannot just blatantly advance nepotism in that kind of way. It's just, and no, come on now, Chakwera, you can do better than that. Malawians had faith in you, and they thought that you would do things differently. But now with this, it is quite a disappointment. Even, this is just not right. All right, but I don't know. Malawians also do not agree with this. So, and they've been writing all over social media. They're not very happy with that. And of course, we move to Sudan, where Sudan's transitional government and rebel groups negotiating in South Sudan's capital, Juba, will sign a final peace deal in 2 weeks, mediators have announced. It's very interesting here, the warring parties and the rebel groups in Sudan. There has been some mediation that has been happening in South Sudan that was being, the mediation was taking place in Juba, and they're being led by a South Sudanese government. And it's very interesting that President Salva Kiir has worked so hard to find peace and understanding for Sudan, between the government of Sudan and the rebels. He's done so well. In fact, they've signed a peace deal. And what really has baffled me with this thing is, as much as I am happy, that is one crisis that has been quelled, but the war and the warring continue in South Sudan itself. These peace talks are happening in Juba, when at that time they were happening and they were being led by President Salva Kiir himself. That time, even the vice president, the first vice president, Riek Machar, was even fearing for his life, could not fly to Juba to have their own peace, talks there. So finally, they signed the peace deal. They're there. And we see the insecurity has persisted. The people of South Sudan, a lot of them are still living in the refugee camps in different countries, and even in South Sudan itself. And there has been a rise of insecurity, killings every other day, and just bad situations happening in South Sudan. And I don't understand. Maybe what they say, doctors cannot treat themselves. I don't get it. Because President Salva Kiir has been very committed to the peace process of Sudan. He's been mediating that peace process in South Sudan between the government of South Sudan and the rebels out there. And he has done so well, and he has succeeded, and they have signed a peace deal. No, the peace deal will be signed in 2 weeks. But he has been unable to just get hold of the situation in South Sudan. And that is the part I really don't understand. There has not been a will from his part. There's not been a will from Riek Machar's part. There's not been a will from other leaders there to find their own peace, and we've seen a lot of times even they've been giving the mediators a very difficult time. Remember, that was being led by South Africa's Vice President Maduko. Is it Maduko or somebody? Yes. And they were just back and forth over the states, over what. But finally they were able. But it's very interesting that South Sudan mediated very successfully the peace for Sudan, but they are unable even to quell the insecurity that is going on in that country right now. Is quite baffling for me. So we go to Nigeria, and the Nigerian government has reversed last week's decision to reopen schools nationwide for final year primary and secondary school students. Education Minister Adamu told reporters at the Presidential Palace that schools would only reopen when it was safe to do so. Yes, and I agree. And of course, the other day we were reading some news here that the Nigerian government, Lagos State, specifically was planning to buy about 10,000 radios for children so that they can be having some homeschooling there. And I thought, okay, now that is just quite interesting, but it appears as they must find ways to ensure that these children are kept busy in school. So yeah, I agree with the decision of the Nigerian government to not open schools, because we've not even, like in Kenya, we've not even reached the peak yet. We have been told that the peak will be at September. So the Ministry of Education had projected that the schools might open in September, but according to where the figures stand and the reality on the ground was that our primary school and secondary school students will not open. So that is for the safety of the students. I think that is a good move there from Nigeria. But now let's talk about the real problem in Nigeria. The Islamist militant group Boko Haram, and it has released a video in which a fighter says he is part of a branch in Nigeria's western Niger state, because we have all for a long time known that Boko Haram is mostly concentrated in the northeast part of the country, but they're saying no, now we're not just in the northeast part of the country, we have moved to the northwest, we are coming into the central of Nigeria, and we want to tell you that Boko Haram, we are continuing to do very well in this country called Nigeria. And so this group shows that Boko Haram has a branch in the Niger state, and the group's more than a decade-long insurgency has largely focused on the northeast, as I said, their country and the Lake Chad region, and the presence, analysts have voiced concerns that the dense mountainous and forest terrain in Niger state will be a natural haven for the militants, and so that is another problem there. And the recent attacks by armed groups in the northwest of the country, including the president's home state of Katsina, have led to protests in the region, and people have protested, and nothing really much have happened. And the other day we were reading here the news about a village that was attacked by about 200 Boko Haram militants who came in with guns. 200 people walking in a village without the presence of security detail in that area, realizing that tells you that a lot of Nigerians in such porous areas by themselves, because if 200 people, armed people, are able to walk into a village and cause a lot of deaths. They killed over 100 people. That tells you there's a lapse of security in the country of Nigeria there. So now Boko Haram is just not concentrated in the north part of Nigeria, but they've also moved, in borders that are closer to the capital in Abuja there. So that if that is not a wake-up call to President Buhari, then I don't know what would really make him take this matter very seriously. And I don't know. We've talked about this so many times, and President Buhari does not seem very keen on addressing this matter head-on. he does not seem very keen in finding a solution to Boko Haram. And we saw the other time, all the time they meet these leaders from the Sahel region and try to find a solution, which they've never been able to come up with. I just don't understand. They have meetings upon meetings upon meetings. They have soldiers from France, from other countries who are there to help them to strategize and just improve on their intelligence and whatnot. It has not been working. So perhaps they need to re-strategize. But I know for the part of Nigeria, which is the mother, which is the safe haven for Boko Haram, if Nigeria would have shown enough, a commitment in fighting Boko Haram, perhaps the situation would have been different, but that is not the case. And we see it is unclear whether these criminal groups have links to, of course, they have links to Boko Haram, and they are affiliated to the larger group, which is Al-Qaeda, which is known to be very active in this region. And when you see the manner in which they kill and maim and destroy lives there, hallmarks of what you see on those international terrorist groups there. So Boko Haram has come closer to Abuja there, the capital of Nigeria. So perhaps, that should be a wake-up call to President Buhari, so that he's able to handle this security matter very, very seriously and take it very seriously and see that he does what's best for the people of Nigeria, and that is to protect their lives there. So that is really worrying. That is quite worrying there, information from Nigeria. And we've seen recent attacks, as I said there earlier, a village that was, attacked. And these people, they come in form of, what do you call them, the herders. They come in form of all these other sorts of militancy, but they're all linked to Boko Haram, and they're all Boko Haram insurgents. And so this is something that has to be addressed, President Buhari. So Boko Haram has come closer to the capital. That's how daring they are. So what are you going to do about it? Because initially they were just concentrated in the north. They will go do their stuff, cause their mayhem, kill, go back. So now they're just closer to where you are. Wow, how daring is that? Yeah, and Buhari is just not even addressing this matter. There's a meeting he had with the security apparatus in the country a couple of weeks ago, not even a couple of weeks ago, perhaps 2 weeks ago. I never saw the details of that meeting, and we were hoping they were going to address the insecurity in that country. So I don't know what happened, because I've tried looking for information about that meeting. I could not get any, so we don't know the strategy. We don't know what is happening. We've not heard any Boko Harams have been caught or have been killed. We've not heard that. We just know that Boko Haram has been doing a lot of killing. They've been the ones who have been doing a lot of killing and capturing and kidnapping and all that stuff. All right, so yeah. Then when you go to, is it Ivory Coast? No, Ivory Coast, their prime minister has died, and he was supposed to be the contestant for the ruling party. Alassane Ouattara is not going for the October elections. He's not running for a re-election. Initially, he wanted to, but I think he studied the mood in Ivory Coast, and he decided no. So his prime minister, who has been serving under him since 2017, was the flag bearer of the party, and he passed on. And when he's been receiving treatment from France, and he's just jetted back into the country July 2nd. It's not very clear what he was suffering from, but may he rest in peace. I hope there will not be any foul play, in Africa, and when you hear these deaths of high-profile people, usually, it's not. We're still waiting to know what killed the former President Nkurunziza of Burundi, but because the reason why we're raising questions is because there's conflicting reports that the government gave over the death of Pierre Nkurunziza. They gave two conflicting accounts as to what might have killed him. So maybe he died from a heart attack, or maybe he died from COVID-19, because that is what the government said, but we don't know. Okay, so. Yeah, and I saw Sir Erun Edahoyo saying there is nothing like Boko Haram. They are Fulani terrorists that's destroying that region of West Africa. And Elvis No Nyong, you're saying corruption strategy by the president of Malawi. Yes, I'm very disappointed by president of Malawi. I was just expecting better from him, and not just forget me. The people of Malawi were really expecting better from our president Lazarus Chakwera. I think this is such a huge disappointment. And I was just reading their tweets earlier before when I was preparing for this, and they were saying perhaps we over expected. Must have placed a bigger price tag when you forget he was an African leader and he could never live to the expectation of just having, a proper leadership, as that has been lacking in Malawi. So he has disappointed not just Malawians, but a lot of other people outside of Malawi that had faith that Malawi indeed was having a new beginning, and with a party that is coming with not really a new beginning, because MCP party ceased to be in power about 26 years ago. It is the founding, party there, Party of Independence, and so Mr. Chakwera is elected back with it. And then what does he do? He has this very ridiculous cabinet, having siblings and relatives and husbands and wives inside. I just does not make any sense at all. President Chakwera, you knew by doing this, nobody would think this is okay. So why did you go ahead and do this? This is pure nepotism. Few ills that are killing this continent. I will employ you because you're my brother, my sister, a husband, wife. I don't care whether you're qualified or not. I'll just give you that position. And that is just wrong. You cannot operate a government as if you're operating a personal enterprise. It doesn't work like that. And so in case you missed that news, the president's former running mate in the 2019 elections, Siddiq Mir, has been appointed Minister for Transport, and his wife, Abida Mir, is the Deputy Minister for Lands. All right, that is husband and wife. Okay, and then Kedi Kadondo is the new Labour Minister, and his sister, Gumbizi Kadondo, is the Health Minister. Those are siblings, all right? And businessman Gospel Kazako has been appointed Information Minister, and his sister-in-law, Agnes Nkusa Nkoma, is the Deputy Agriculture Minister. Tell me, in which world that will make even an iota of sense? It does not make any sense at all. It's just not right. I don't care whether they were qualified, overly qualified or not. President Lazarus Chakwera, that is not right, and the people of Malawi has expressed, their displeasure and their disappointment in their new president over these disappointments that he just did to his cabinet. And Dundi Ume, you're saying African government is family business and leisure not for the citizens until we dismantle neo-colonialism and dictatorship. If not, we will continue to swim in ocean of backwardness while other nations of world is moving ahead of us. Yes, and Chika are saying sometimes I wonder what is the work of African Union, because they don't do anything to better the situation in the continent of Africa. Look at how people are being killed in Nigeria. No one is talking. Please support the disintegration of Nigeria because the Biafra is the light of Africa. And Samuel Ebot, you're saying you're watching from Cape Town, South Africa, and a lot of deaths there in South Africa. Our prayers to you and the rest of the continent. Of course, we are in this together. We are all suffering, but South Africa seems to have taken a big blow from Covid-19, and now the death toll there, I think, must be 4,000 right now. And hey, Samuel Ebot, I don't know if you're South African or not, but you're in Cape Town. Please tell me, because we were watching another news early in the morning from South Africa. The government is digging about 1.5 million graves in anticipation of that, how many people will die. And we were just wondering, because the figures in South Africa right now are close to 300,000, and the death toll is close to 4,000. So if you're having a death toll that is close to 4,000, how does the government of President Cyril Ramaphosa think that, it should prepare for 1.5 million graves? What is happening? That news shocked me. I had to literally go and look, what is the death rate there in South Africa in line with COVID-19? And I saw it's just close to 4K, but the government said through the Ministry of Health that they're preparing 1.5 million graves. I don't know. You tell me, Samuel. Thank you so much for watching. And Dafrimson Nwanko is watching live from the Holy Land of Israel. Thank you so much for watching. And I don't know how Israel is doing in terms of COVID-19. I hope that you're safe wherever you are. And Mobutu, you're saying you're coming from Congo. I don't know if you are related to Mobutu Sese Seko, but thank you. And I saw, so you're saying, who is this Malawian new traitor working? Who is he reporting to? I don't know. But for a moment there, people thought that he would be the guy to bring change in Malawi. And now look at this level of ridiculousness. How are you going to appoint a husband and a wife? Both as one as a minister, the other one as an assistant minister. They all have ministerial positions, all right? And then you appoint a brother as a minister and a sister as a minister. And then you appoint another man as a minister, their cousin as an assistant minister. So when you'll be having these cabinet meetings, President Lazarus Chakwera, I think it's just going to be an all big family reunion of some sort. This is just not right. I don't know where in the world he thought this is something that will be acceptable, even in the lowest of standards. I know a few people have done that, and in just closer to Kenya here, Uganda, the First Lady of Uganda is the Minister for Education. So, but I hear she's doing a great job, but still does not make any sense. Okay, so maybe he's copying from such, You just bring your family members and make this a family business. And also in South Sudan, the first Vice President Riek Machar, his wife is the Minister of Defense. All right, so maybe they're just copying a few scenarios across Africa and thinking, you know what, us, we're gonna make it bigger and better family affair, because he's just gotten a few people who are related in his cabinet. And of course, Malawians have not been very happy with that. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. This has been Diaspora Dispatches, where we've been looking at the news-making headlines across the continent. Of course, the good, the bad, the ridiculous, and of course, the ugly. And when I say the ugly, it's the number of people at the killings that Boko Haram is carrying out. And President Muhammadu Buhari has been treating this matter like it's a walk in the park, and it's not. Requires all the attention in the world that he should be giving to it, but he has refused to do so. I'll see you here tomorrow with other news making headlines across the continent. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Thank you so much, and a very good afternoon to you.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.